Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to present the poster session. Thank you for stay tuning. And the first attendant in this session is Rivera Gutierrez from
Hello, good day.
From UPV, Mexico. And the subject of this poster is overexpression of MIR403 gene in Arabidopsis thaliana.
I am Rivera Gutierrez. I belong to the IPM, and the name of my project is Overexpression of microRNA for AUT3 gene in Arabidopsis thaliana. Okay, the microRNA are non-coding RNAs of 20 to 24 nucleotides in length that regulate the gene expression through their base complementarity with target messenger RNAs. Well, in our workgroup, we have characterized the expression pattern of several MIR genes. One of them is microRNA 403. Therefore, to determine the specific expression tissue of our gene of interest, we made a fusion of the microRNA 403 promoter with the goose reporter gene. As shown in figure 1a, we found that it is expressed in the anthers of the Arabidopsis thaliana. Then, to determine the specific function of microRNA 403, we made two constructions using the PRI9 vector as base. The first construction is on the direction of the ubiquitin promoter, and the second on the direction of the 35S promoter of the cauliflower mosaic virus. Once confined by sequencing, agrobacterial was transformed and later to Arabidopsis thaliana by the floral dip technique. At the moment, we have some possible transgenic plants to continue with our studies, both genotypic and phenotypic. It should be noted that this is the first report that relates microRNA 403 to the process of sexual reproduction, since its expression occurs in the male reproductive system.
Okay, let's go to the second attendant. She is Lucero Cantú Guerrero from the Universidad Autónoma de Querétaro, and the subject is effect of vitamin A, D, and E on the expression of the retinol 4 binding protein gene RPV4 in 333LE adipocytes.
Effect of vitamins A, D, and E on the expression of the retinol binding protein 4 gene in 3T3L1 adipocytes. Overweight and obesity are a public health problem. Their prevalence has doubled since 1980. The high consumption of fats and carbohydrates is one of the causes for the development of overweight and obesity. Metabolic syndromes manifested by increased body fat and metabolic imbalance. Vitamins are organic substances present in very small amounts in food, but essential their lack in the diet and the increase of the rate of overweight and obesity currently presents in serious problems of malnutrition in Mexico. The RBIP4 protein is the transport protein for vitamin A. The circulating concentration of RBP4 was associated mainly with measurements of the circumference, weights, and percentage of visceral fat that was the percentage of body fat. Lowering RBP4 levels could help reduce hyperplasia and hypertrophy in adipocytes tissue. Vitamins A, D, and E have been shown to affect adipocane concentrations. Therefore, in this project, the effect of vitamins A, D, and E on the accumulation of lipids in adipocytes and on the expression of the RBP4 protein was analyzed. The accumulation of lipids in adipocytes of the 33L1 line and the expression of the RBP4 gene were evaluated by real-time PCR. After culture period, an inverse effect could be observed in the accumulation of lipids by the differentiation adipocytes in the culture plates with oil red staining. The intensity of the red color was analyzed with the Zen 2.3 Blue Edition software by Carl Zeiss using the RGB system based on pixel frequency and intensity in a range of 0 to 255. It was observed that at higher doses, the frequency of pixels of lower intensity increases, which is related to a lower accumulation of lipids in differentiated adipocytes. The administration of vitamin E reduces the accumulation of lipids in differentiated 3 line 1 adipocytes. The expression of RBP4 in 33L1 adipocytes is regulated by the administration of vitamin E. The highest is observed with the 10 micromole dose. This vitamin E and D, no significant changes were observed. And the conclusions are the expression of RBP4 is regulated by the effect of the administration of vitamins E in 33L1 adipocyte cultures, observing an effect inversely proportional to the concentration of vitamin. Retinol decreases RBP4 expression to a greater extent compared to calcitriol and tocopherol. Thank you.
Well, the poster of Lucero Cantu Guerrero will be available in the Facebook page of iCASAT. Well, the next attended is Iván Cañedo from the Benemérita Universidad Autónoma de Puebla. The subject is implementation of an ADRC from DC motor angular position in an ARM Cortex M4 MCU using MicroPython.
This is the presentation of the poster. Implementation of an active disturbance rejection control for DC motor angular position in a ARM Cortex M4 microcontroller unit using MicroPython. Presented by the engineer Iván Cañedo Farfán, the Dr. Roberto Carlos Ambrosio Lázaro, and the Dr. Fermí Guerrero Castellanos. All the authors are from the Benemérita Universidad Autónoma de Puebla for the program Maestría en Ingeniería Electrónica. This research presents the implementation of the angular position control of a DC motor using the active disturbance rejection control. This control strategy has the feature of compensating the internal and external disturbances. This is the block diagram for the control of angular position of a brushed permanent magnet DC gear motor. The implementation is performed in an ARM M4 microcontroller with floating point unit. The selected MCU is the STM F407 VGT6 from ST Microelectronics. The programming of the MCU is performed using the MicroPython interpreter. This programming tool allows a faster implementation, sacrificing resources of the MCU. The time required to compute and update the control signal is measured using a logic analyzer with the help of an auxiliary digital signal. The logic analyzer software used is the one provided by the company Ciele. The reference signal is generated using LabVIEW and communicated to the MCU with a serial interface. In the same way, the overall performance of the system is measured in LabVIEW, comparing the reference with the actual position of the motor. To implement the control strategy, it's necessary to measure the motor's position and control the motor's direction and speed. To do this, the position of the motor is measured using an A-B incremental encoder attached to the motor shaft. To control the direction and speed of the motor, an H-bridge is used, where the enable pin is controlled with a pulse width modulated signal. Up next, a demonstration of the proposed implementation. With this visual instrument, it's possible to visualize in real time the performance of the control. The blue line represents the reference signal that is being sent to the MCU. The red line is the angular position of the motor. Right now, the motor is following a square signal, but it's possible to generate a sinusoidal signal. As it can be appreciated, the control now presents a phase delay. The reason for this is that the control law implemented is meant to be used as regulation to a given reference. To measure the performance of the MCU, in the logic analyzer, the auxiliary signals are displayed. As it can be seen, the reference is updated with a lower frequency than the sampling rate. It can also be seen that the reference is not updated with a fixed period. The reason for this is that the reference is being generated in a non-real-time operative system. Therefore, it's not possible to have an exact time period. Nevertheless, the system does not require this feature. If we zoom in, we can see that the sampling rate is 2.5 milliseconds and that the time necessary to update the control signal is 0.56 milliseconds. It's also worth noticing that the process that requires more computational time is the extended state observer calculation. Finally, this is the experimental platform controlling simultaneously three motors. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, the next attendant is Daniel Misael Garza Garcia from the Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León. The subject is diseño de una vacuna multiepítopo para el SARS-CoV-2 y su expresión en Solanum lycopersicum, un enfoque bioinformático.
In silico design of an enable vaccine against SARS-CoV-2 for expression in tomato. In the late December 2019, health authorities in Wuhan, China, reported an outbreak of pneumonia of unknown etiology. Currently, cases of SARS-CoV-2 are on the rise in many countries around the world. In the countries where it was thought that the pandemic had already been controlled, new outbreaks are occurring. However, there are already different types of approved phase 3 vaccine against SARS-CoV-2. However, these vaccines require cold chain, which represent a problem for developing countries. Reverse biotechnology is an approach that makes it possible to predict by bioinformatic epitopes of the sequence of pathogenic microorganisms without having to cultivate them in the laboratory, which allows to develop vaccine faster and at the lower cost. Likewise, for the heterologous production of epitopes, plants are an automatic expression system to their safety, the performance of post-translational modification, high production, low cost, and scalability. The amino acid sequence of the SARS-CoV-2 GPS was obtained from the gene bank of the National Center for Biotechnology Information. The SARS-CoV-2 GPS topology was performed using the CCTOP server. The amino acid sequence of the glycoprotein was analyzed using the immunoepitope database, beta cell epitope prediction tools using immunogenicity, antigenicity, hydrophility, accessibility, beta turn, and flexibility analyze. Epitopes with vaccine characteristics were predicted. From the 6 candidate epitopes, a multiple epitope fusion protein was designed linking the amino acid sequence EAAK as a helical linker and the 50S ribosomal adjuvant sequence. Subsequently, the physicochemical, allergenicity, and toxicity properties were evaluated using the server's AlertTop, ToxinPred, and ProdParam tool, respectively. Additionally, the prediction of the secondary and third structure was carried out using the SOPMA and Spark X servers, respectively.
Well, the next attendant is Jorge Eduardo Tenopala Peralta from Cicata, IPN. The subject is development of a thermoluminescent material based of heptaoxodiphosphate of TM. I'm sorry, we have a little technical issue, so we are follow with the next attendant, and in the end, we come back to the work of Jorge Eduardo. The next attendant is Aldo Fabián Chávez Villanueva. He's from Instituto Tecnológico Superior de los Reyes, Michoacán. The subject is development of a control model for articulate arm through artificial intelligence.
The main objective of this research is to obtain a low-cost control for articular arm using artificial intelligence. Most of these devices on the market are very expensive, considerably reducing their implementation in non-industrialized areas. As initially stated, in the development of control model, the position of the n effector was calculated by a machine learning algorithm based on a decision tree ensemble. For example, random forest is a typical ensemble. The results were compared with obtained by forward cinematics, used traditionally in 3 degrees of freedom robotic arm. Yes, in this case, for example, this is the manipulator used in this research work, and the forward cinematics example you can see right here. Mainly, For the training process, the algorithm was fed with all the possible variation of the control angles, theta 1 to theta 3, and the length of the links. Which were considered as input. This is the input. All theta 1 to theta 3 and the links. The length of the links. While the target was the position of the n effector. The best results, and this is the database in order to train on the algorithm or the training data. This is the sign view and the n effector position. The best results were for a random forest with 1,100 estimators. To measure the performance of the algorithms, the mean square error was implemented. According to the learning curve, it is possible to observe that as time passes, the algorithm considerably decreased the variance. Right here. It's important to say that the dataset or the database was split with 2% for validation test and 80% for training process. Okay, this is important to say. And like a principal conclusion, the random forest, by having an ensemble of decision trees, find the best characteristic of the available sample space, like inputs, improving its predictive precision. This in turn controls the overfitting, since showing a mean square error of approximately of 9%. And this is the reference used in this poster. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, everyone. We experimented a technical issue, but we are here. We're back. The next attendant is Hector Pina from the Instituto Politécnico Nacional. The subject is detection of irradiated fatty foods by identification of 2-alkylic cyclobutanone.
Good morning, partners and colleagues. My name is Hector Pina. I'm a student of a Master's in Advanced Technology from iCASAT Legare. The project I'm presenting is detection of irradiated fatty foods by identification of 2-alkyl cyclobutanol. So this is the poster. Well, initially, with data from the OMS, it was said that there were over thousands of millions of diseases caused by raw food contaminated with bacteria and pathogens every year. This situation caused worries and insecurities in governments, and food safety became a priority in many of them. Thus, food irradiation is proposed. This technique was originated in 1940s, and later it was established in 1984 that this technique is completely safe, endorsed by the creation of a Food Irradiation International Consultative Group directed by OMS and the FAO. Therefore, food irradiation is proposed on avocados since Mexico is the first producer of this fruit, representing a 30% of global harvest. Moreover, in the last decade, it was reported that exportation values have increased considerably. Then, implementation of food irradiation on avocado allows a delay on its ripening. It also eradicates pests and thus satisfy importation standards of other countries. Avocado is classified as an oleaginous fruit with a high content of oil and intermediate in water. It is rich in protein and fat, with oil content of 10 to 20%. All these qualities are very helpful and applicable to the technique used. To identify irradiated avocados, this project proposes the detection of 2-alkyl cyclobutanol on the oil obtained from this fruit. This chemical cyclic compound is specifically generated on fatty food that has been irradiated. It is originated from the chemical reaction of triglycerides containing fatty acids. Thus, the compound can be used as an identifier of irradiated fruits. The methodology in which the project is based is the one established by the British standards in the European Standard EN 1785-2003, which is successfully used in detection of 2-alkyl-cyclobutanol on raw pork, chicken, and whole egg. So it is now applied in avocado. The methodology is first of all to get the fruit irradiated. According to many papers, avocado presents good qualities and property conservation, getting doses lower than 2.5 kilogray. So initially, the detection will start with doses of 160 gray in 50 minutes, approximately. Then sample treatment is required to obtain a mixture of fruit pulp with anhydrous sodium sulfate, which reduces water quantity. Then this mixture allows the solvent to get through the pulp and extract oil as much as possible. The oil extraction is performed by using N-hexane as solvent, which will extract the avocado oil from the solid phase. After this recuperation, the solvent is eliminated by distillation. The oil obtained will be analyzed by gas chromatography coupled to a mass spectrometer. This technique divides the components of the oil to separate the 2-alkyl-cyclobutanol and identify it by looking its representative ions on the mass spectrometer. Finally, detection will confirm an irradiated avocado. So far, the technique has been well applied in avocado because its great fat content. The methodology has allowed obtaining a good avocado oil according to its characterization by using infrared spectrometry and refraction values. The infrared software analyzer suggests the presence of palmitic oil, which is a precursor of 2-alkyl-cyclobutanol. So then, the hypothesis of the project is applying the EN 1785-2003 standard, it will be possible to detect the compound 2-alkyl-cyclobutanol in Mexican avocado fruit exposed to low doses of gamma irradiation, since avocado has not to be irradiated at high doses to keep its organoleptic qualities. And a final objective, it is also contribute to Mexican standards of food irradiation, since the country doesn't have any regulation of national food or imported one. The only standard that is allowed for few industries is a foreign one, the Codex Stan 106/1983. So creating normativity for adequate food or any other irradiation could help in many areas in the country. So that's it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Well, the next attendant is Victor Manuel Hurtado Pájaro from CIDESI. The subject is Biotechnology Disruptive Approach in Mexico, Emerging Tendencies such as an Alternative to Improve the Quality of Life.
Victor Manuel Hurtado Pájaro. I come from the Center for Engineering and Industrial Development, CIDESI, and the purpose of this work is show development the biotechnological disruptive approach in Mexico, emerging tendencies which are an alternative to improve the quality of life. The main objective of this research is to use the G-plan as a resource to promote technological management for emerging technologies such as biotechnology. The growing interest and depth of biotechnology studies around the world, including Latin America, is reflected in a significant increase in the amount of scientific production in the area. The publication describes numerous applications in agriculture and medicine as resources for energy production, among others, that can be used as viable solutions to global problems, especially in developing countries. Authors install controversy around some of these applications. For example, in agriculture, what are you of these activities? Latin America intends to involve areas scientific must continue to address to ensure the biosecurity of the population and prevent the loss of biodiversity. The productive sector in Latin America is based on low-tech, intensive industries or integration into larger process as a part of the production chain. The phenomenon is complex and the comparative advantages are static. While some countries in the region specialize in raw materials processing, others focus on manufacturing. As a result, indigenous technological capabilities are limited relative to Asian countries, where, for example, global but strategic import substitution programs have been established. Regarding intellectual property, the data shows that in Latin America are remaining with the traditional industrial sectors and has yet to advance towards high-demand technological paradigms, choose biotechnology, genetics, and other fields. Faced with the advancements and commercialization of biotechnological developments, Latin America has come to the need to address intrinsic issues by forcing relevant developments, as well as associated aspects such as public perception, intellectual property mechanisms, property protection mechanisms, the construction of regulatory framework, and the various emerging derivative aspects related to the biotechnology, social nanotechnology, but the importance of associated research and commercialization in the region is scarce. Taking into account the technology management, we can define a technological roadmap. Considering the T-plan proposed by Oliver and Val, this methodology have 4 different workshops. The first one is related with the market, taking into account the performance dimension, market business, drivers, prioritization, SWOT analysis, gaps. The second is the product feature concepts, grouping, impact ranking, product ranking, gaps. The third is technology, takes the technology solutions, grouping, impact ranking, gaps, and finally the fourth workshop is road mapping. In this, we have the possibility to link in technology resources to future market and define gaps. Referred with this methodology, propose the technological roadmaps oriented by sustainable goals by 2030 agenda by ONU, and the results define 2 different specific topics. The first one is the strengthening health systems, and the second the climate crisis and biodiversity loss. We can define a biotechnological radar with 2 main specific science. The first one is nanotechnology. We can observe the textile and cosmetic catalysis, nanoparticles, semiconductors, magnetics, electrochemicals, nonlinear optics, delphins, medicines, and sensors. With the line of sensor, we establish the definition of the technological readiness levels for specialized sensors. We can observe different points for the classification and the real scope and application in the real file. Well, the conclusion is technological management allows establishing the push and pull mechanisms necessary to promote organizational sustainability to 2 types of perspectives, technological and commercial and real application. Both are considered strategic capabilities when included in a technology roadmap. Given the above, it is concluded The use of strategic intelligence allows to conceptualize and establish a global panorama of the current needs of society, economy, and environment, taking into account the transitions towards the fourth industrial revolution, where the technology is included. The second is the interrelation between the national strategic programs, PRONASES, the sustainable goals of the 2030 agenda, and the regional needs with the biotechnology give a structure and technological roadmap where the transversal lines demarcate the use of sensors specialized for the health and agri-food sector of Mexico. The third, the use and integration of specialized sensor for their application in the real file includes various technologies, technology, advanced manufacturing, 3D printing. Likewise, its cohesion with biotechnology allows various emerging fields on which high competitive value research can be based for which technological surveillance is suggested considering the patent cooperation treaty (PCT). The TRLs of products with integrated sensors allows to know the current context in the terms of performance, application, and quantification mechanisms, among other uses. It does not affect the invention already listed with the PCT. Some reference and the acknowledgement for the tutorial committee and the Master and Environment Engineering, José Luis Navarro Jiménez, and my infinite gratitude to the Secretaría de la Juventud for his openness to the use of his spaces in order to promote strategic alliance and make down to society the hard work in favor of innovation in the state of Querétaro. For attention, thanks.
Well, we continue with Roberto Alan Yáñez Lugo from Cicata Querétaro. The subject is flow measurement pattern design.
I come from the Center for Engineering and Information.
Hi, my name is Alan. I study in Cicata in the image analysis area. Today I will talk you about the work that I present in this poster session. The title of this poster is Flow Measurement Pattern Design. The work that is present belongs to a larger project, the project that is complement with the one that I will talk about today is the implementation of PIB laboratory. The motivation for the implementation of the laboratory is due to the fact that the implementation to this technique regularly carried out according to each circumstance of the experiment, which does not allow the reproduction to be in the same way. The intention of this laboratory is to be able to reproduce the condition for the application of the PIB technique. An important part for the measure carried out in this laboratory to be reliable is to have a measure standard that can be calibrated and is reference for the calibration of the measurement equipment and be able to guarantee the measure in all possible cases. The measure standard necessary for this task must allow the knowledge of the fluid have to control of its behavior of the flow, the conduit that will be used as a standard. The most suitable way to have this characteristic is through a venturi duct. For the design of venturi arrangement, it is necessary to consider several factors that allow for adequate section changes. The design of this venturi duct corresponds to a subsonic speed region, which allows us to cover a large number of circumstances in which measurement can be made using the PIB technique. The geometry resulting for the design process is shown in this image. The flow direction in this instance for the left-right passing through in the inlet, the further reduction for the rectangular section In this section is where the fluid variables will be monitoring and the reference measurement will also be taken. The monitoring of the variables will carried out at the entrance and the exit, with the arrangement of the monitoring of the variables will be carried out the entrance and the exit, with the arrangement of temperature, humidity, and pressure sensors. Monitoring in this way allows to know the condition of the fluid in this inlet and outlet are preserved and stable. This condition, theoretically and according to calculation, should be preserved. The reading of this sensor will confirm the condition of the measurement area and that the calculation made the design were adequate. The theoretical considerations are adapting of recommendation made the calculation and design the wind tunnels which allow theoretical closeness to the operation of the venturi duct and the open circuit with tunnel. The theoretical considerations are adapting of recommendation made in the calculation and design of wind tunnels, which allow a theoretical closeness of the operation of the venturi duct and an open circuit with tunnel. To evaluate the correct operation of this measurement pattern, it was carried out using 5 fans with different flow rates and different speed. The result of these measures shown in the graph and stable and controlled behavior of fluid through the venturi duct. As a conclusion, we can affirm that design can be used to measure reference compressible fluid in subsonic region. Thanks.
Okay, the next participant is Joana Lisbeth Monteseguedo from Cicata y Peine Querétaro. The subject is tribological pair lubricate with proteins and high and low entrainment speeds as a functional of SRR.
Hi, my
I'm sorry, we have a problem with the audio, but in a minute we will be back with this poster. The next poster is from Maribel C. Ortiz. She is from Instituto Politécnico Nacional. The subject is detecting vulnerable segments using machine learning.
I am Maribel C. Ortiz. I will describe the content of this poster. The title is Detecting Vulnerable Settlements Using Deep Learning. The participating authors are Joaquín Salas, Pablo Vera, and Elio Atenógenes Villaseñor. One of the challenge is knowing the location of vulnerable areas and assessing their status. Traditionally, governments have measured vulnerability through the direct application of ground interviews via nationwide censuses. However, in most cases, the censuses are implemented sparingly, every 10 years. This work proposes a method based on deep learning techniques to locate vulnerable areas using multispectral satellite image and data from population censuses. One of the first steps described in the poster is the creation of the database. In our approach, we employed 144 mosaics of multispectral image, bulge medians. These mosaics have a dimension of 150 times 150 kilometers. The satellite image from Landsat 4 to Landsat 8. Image resolution is 30 meters per pixel, and we use 6 spectral bands. From this image, we extract more than 2 million patches of 20 times 20 pixels at residential block level in Mexico. To extract a residential block, we use latitude and longitude, data provided by the 2010 population census. We extract the patch to limits. To crop image, we need to know the central point, defined by longitude and latitude, and we calculate the required distance to the north, south, east, and west. We implement a linear-fied network with 3 convolutional layers of 6, 16, and 120 filters, a fully connected layer of 84 units. We train neighbors to predict vulnerability using the image patches and the census data. We calculate the vulnerability index to classify vulnerable or non-vulnerable residential block. We take a binary classification as ground truth. To test the CAN, we select a set of sample patches that we do not use for training. We compare the CAN output prediction with the classification according to the census data and evaluate the performance using ROC and precision versus recall curves. We perform experiments using the visible RGB, infrared, and both visible and infrared bands of the image. These neural network models seem to have a good performance to classify vulnerable and non-vulnerable areas. We create a vulnerability map in Mexico using satellite image. We develop an application in Google Earth Engine to show the prediction of the Link 5 CNN for 2 million residential blocks. This application describes the vulnerability level from 0 to 1, where the lighter color is less vulnerable and dark color is more vulnerable. In conclusion, the implementation of convolutional neural network is a feasible method to detect and access to vulnerable areas in Mexico. This was the content description for this poster. Here you can see the complete structure. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next attendant is Kemiset Marcos from Cicata Querétaro. The subject is upgrade of a UV-based spectrometer to also measure optical activity and light scattering.
Welcome to the presentation of this research work that is aimed at the design and optimization of a commercial device, and the project is entitled Upgrade of a UV-Vis spectrophotometer to also measure optical activity and light scattering. This is the general view of the poster. I am so glad to explain you how it works and what is going on and what result we obtain of this project. To begin with this explanation, I'm going to comment that the spectrophotometer is a laboratory device used to study samples, especially solutions. With it, we can know how much absorbance is obtained and thereby determine the level absorbed in a sample. I mean, there is a relation between absorbance and solvent present in the solution. Incorporating new device into a commercial spectrophotometer will allow us to know new properties of substance, which as optical activity that can inform us about the chiral molecules that are studied. This is the fundamental purpose of this investigation. Basically, the methodology includes the knowledge about how to study the substance and which are the principal factors to determine some properties. The review is the first step to know what happened in the optical arrangements today to study. The design through a software, especially SolidWorks, is the second step to control the dimensions of this project. Know about the resistance of the materials. It's important to be sure that the system is going to work in the best conditions. Development of a phase-sensitive amplifier in a locking amplifier for 60 measurement channels is one of the final steps. Finally, the assembly of components and optomechanical components is the last step in this project. Electronics play a fundamental role in the project, include the multiplexing of signal for 60 sensors that obtain the output signal. That's it, the photodetectors. Another important element was the mechanical and optical design, where the efforts in parts made of metal and 3D printing were put into considerations. With the new adaptations include, more information can be obtained through optical activity, such as degrains and also light laser scattering. The use of mechanical design is essential for new future systems. Signal multiplexing can provide us with sensitive data and help us manage the big data that can be obtained from these measurements. For more information, we enable this website where you can find the references, uses, and previous studies. On behalf of all the participants of this project, we thank you for your attention and we leave you the contact forms. We'll be grateful if you send us your questions and comments. And thank you so much again. See you later and keep you safe.
Okay, the next attendant is Ángel Hernández from Instituto Politécnico Nacional. The subject is Quality Evaluation of Mexican Lemon using Computer Vision Techniques.
Quality Evaluation of Mexican Lemon Using Computer Vision Techniques by Ángel Hernández, Francisco Ornelas, Juan Hurtado, and Joel González. Introduction. The determination of quality in fruits is usually based on subjective criteria and its evaluation methods vary from person to person. Therefore, to have uniform criteria to evaluate the important aspects of these fruits is necessary. In this project, a computer vision system was developed to evaluate the main physical features of Mexican lemons produced at Colima, Mexico. The features selected for this project were size, color, and peel defects. A total of 913 lemon images were used to build a dataset which contains the features mentioned before. With the resultant information, a quality assessment was made based upon the Mexican norm NMX-FF-077-1996. According to the previous evaluation, 70% of the lemons tested met the color aspect, while the mean size of these lemons was between 23 and 27 millimeters. This size does not meet the size parameter, and 95% of the lemons did not have significant defects on their peel. Methodology. To measure the size of the fruits, a pixel per metric (ppm) was implemented. This method needs an object as reference with its width given in pixels and its size, given in millimeters. Therefore, when a new object is presented, the size value can be calculated with the pixel width value. Although, because a lemon is a semispherical object, two measures are needed, one for the x-axis and one for the y-axis. In the end, the value reported is the mean of these two values. To evaluate the fruit color, the CCI, or the Color Citrus Index, was used. This index uses the coordinates L, A, and V of the Hunter Lab color space. Equation 1 shows how the value is calculated. A higher value indicates red and orange hues, while lower values means greener and yellowish hues. For defect detection, the whole surface of the lemon is scanned. Therefore, the pixels contained on the lemon's peel are evaluated. If a certain pixel is not between a given threshold, then that pixel is considered as defective. The evaluation continues for all the pixels, and the areas, aka the defective pixels, are drawn in the image. After that, the sum of these areas is done and it's compared against the total area of the lemon. If this comparison is greater than the 10% of the total area, then the lemon is considered as a defective lemon. Experimental results. Figure 2 shows the process of measurement. The distribution of the mean size for all the lemons measured is depicted in Figure 4. The samples seems to group between 20 and 28 millimeters. Figure 5 shows the distribution of the CCI values obtained, and according to this graph, Figure 6 was made. It is important to mention that the accepted CCI value is located between minus 21.3 and minus 8.8. The biggest group shows that most of the samples complied with the desired color, but there are outliers in both sides of the graph, which indicates the presence of lemons with darker and yellower hues. For defect detection, the algorithm only detects certain kind of defects, such as color spot, mechanical injuries, and roughness. However, the system cannot predict if a lemon will develop defects and could wrongly classify a lemon as a defective one if it's not between the color threshold. Conclusions. The computer system developed was able to evaluate the three major aspects for the lemon fruit. From the whole lemons tested, 64% had the desired color for this kind of citrus. For the size, no lemon complied the minimum size desired, that is 36 millimeters. But the mean size of these samples was between 24 and 28 millimeters. For the defects, 95% of the samples did not have significant defects, such as injuries or defects that compromises their color, aroma, or shape. The rest have defects originated by diseases or mechanical damage. According to this, the sample had a regular color quality, and none of the samples had a good size quality, and for the defects, the majority of the samples had an excellent quality. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next poster is from Chemicet Marcos Escobar from Cicata Querétaro. The subject is metrological comparison of two high-performance laser modulation techniques.
On behalf of the authors of this poster, welcome to the presentation of this research work entitled Metrological Comparison of Two High-Performance Laser Modulation Techniques in collaboration with institutions such as Cicata, Universidad Tecnológica de Querétaro, and Universidad Autónoma de Querétaro. To begin, I would like to show the poster in general, where we show the advantages and disadvantages of each modulation technique that I will present below. When working with an optical system, it must be taken into account that there are disturbances, better commonly known as noise, In order to correctly eliminate and process the digital signal, techniques are used to filter the data that we know that is important, and this process of transforming the signal is known as modulation. For this work, two different types of modulation were used. As we can see, in the first one, we use direct modulation using a power supply that provides a sinusoidal current and it generates a modulated intensity. In the second option will be external modulation through an electrical modulator that uses a lithium niobate crystal to change the refractive index due to the pocket effect in relation to the electrical current that we apply. And consequently, the applied electrical field is driven by the external sinusoidal current that provides a modulated output signal. Here we can see the optical arrangement that was designed, consistent of a light emitter at 552 nanometers. An electroamplitude modulator is also observed in this picture. For the data acquisition, we use an array of 16 photodiodes to obtain the signal at the end of the process. Methodology process was very important in this system because we know that we have a correct operation. The first step was prepare the diode controller source, and we need to be sure to know the exactly frequency and current applied. Select the modulation range to know that which range or frequency we have. We start in tens of hertz and we finish in 102 kilohertz. That is the highest frequency that optical device we use can work. The experiment to know that the modulate pin intensity was correct, and it was the first steps. Finally, is compare the external modulation versus the direct settings that we set up previously. And finally is review the assessment of stability in the signal to noise ratio. That is one of the most important parameters to know that the modulate was successful. In resource, we can say that have a good signal acquisition system is important. We can have a good modulation, but we need a high-speed photodiodes to know the correct signal at the end. And the frequencies to use was determined by the types of modulation that we use, and it will be different for each case. The modulation frequency range, we allow to know the best configuration for the future experiments. For this reason, in optical system, we need to have present the modulation size to select the correct type of modulation we need, especially to know the stability in the signal to noise ratio. That is one of the most important parameters to be sure of the stability of all the system. For more information on the article, consult, and more data, we put at your disposal this QR code. On behalf of the members of this investigation, we appreciate your attention and we can be at your disposal for questions and comments. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're streaming again this poster because we have difficult issues. The poster is from Jorge Eduardo of Cicata Legaria IPN. The subject is develop of thermoluminescent material based on eptooxodiphosphate.
On behalf of the author
Hi, my name is Jorge Tenopala, and this is my poster, entitled Development of a Thermoluminescent Material Based on Magnesium Pyrophosphate Doped with Thulium Ions. The development of new thermoluminescent dosimetric materials is of great importance. Materials are required without dependence on the type of ionizing radiation and environmental factors. The proposal in this work is the synthesis and thermoluminescent characterization of magnesium pyrophosphate doped with thulium ions. The material was synthesized via solvent evaporation from 0 to 10 mol% doping with thulium ions. In figure 1, the X-ray diffraction pattern is presented, and it was found that by the synthesis method, two phases are obtained. The phase in the highest proportion is magnesium pyrophosphate with 87%, and the minority phase is thulium phosphate with 13%. Based on the diffraction pattern, a grain size of 32 nanometers was estimated. The photoluminescent emission spectrum of the powder synthesized shows an electric transition 1D2 to 3F4, which is a characteristic 4F transition of thulium. For the thermoluminescent characterization, a source of strontium-90 was used. The effect of thulium concentration on the TL response was analyzed in magnesium pyrophosphate powders doped from 0 to 10 mol%. The best TL response was found at a concentration of 8 mol% of thulium. The TL curve of the powders exhibits a well-defined peak at about 198 degrees Celsius. The magnesium pyrophosphate doped with thulium at 8 mol% presented a linear range of 0.54 to 600 grays and an acceptable repeatability with a coefficient of variation of 0.92% and a well-defined dosimetric peak at 198 degrees Celsius. Therefore, magnesium pyrophosphate doped with thulium ions has the quality to be used in the food irradiation industry. Thanks for your attention.
Well, we will close this section with the poster of Joana Lisbeth Monteseguedo from CICATE-PN Querétaro. The subject is gibologic repair, lubricate with proteins and high and low entrainment speeds as a functional of ISRR.
Hi, my name
No,
is Jorge
Karen,
Tenopala, and this is my poster entitled Development of a Thermoluminescent Material.
Hi, my name is Joanna. I'm going to talk about of the poster. The name of this research is tribological pair stainless steel 316L and ultra high molecular weight polyethylene lubricate with proteins at high and low entrainment speed as a function of sliding to rolling ratio. I'm going to start about the abstract. I'm going to mention what is the general abstract. Total knee arthroplasty is one of the approved treatments for osteoarthritis, advanced arthritis, or trauma of knee joint. This consists in replace the damaged joint with a biomaterial. The most common biomaterials are ultra high molecular weight polyethylene and stainless steel 316L. However, the lifetime of the biomaterials are 20 to 50 years because the most common material that suffer damage is the polymer, and the principal goal of the researchers is to increase the wear resistance of the ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. Exists a standard to establish what is the condition to make the wear testing. This standard is the ISO, and this standard establishes the arthrokinematic load, a kind of lubricant, temperature, under which wear testing machines of this device must operate. This standard mentioned that the kind of lubricants that need to use is bovine serum diluted with ionized water to have a protein concentration of 20 grams per liter. In this research, we investigate the role of the proteins in the lubrication of the tribological pair, stainless steel 316L, and ultra high molecular weight polyethylene at high and low entrainment speed as a function of the sliding to rolling ratio using a volume distribumeter and dilute fetal bovine serum at protein concentration of 20 grams per liter, because we want to compare the experimental behavior of the coefficient of friction of both fetal bovine serum and water and elaborate prediction models for both cases for low and high entrainment speed. Well, as you can see this image, this is osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis of the knee occurs when the structures of the joints become damaged. The symptoms of the osteoarthritis usually happen gradually and can include pain in the knee joint, lost mobility, degradation of the articular cartilage, as you can see. And the second is this image. This is the most total knee replacement. This is a solution of the osteoarthritis, and the lifetime of this material is 10 to 50 years. The principal component of the material is the femoral component, the tibial bearing, and the tibial thread. In the middle, you can see this a polymer. The most common material, as mentioned, is the ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. This material is soft, as you can see, and the other are hard. And exists causes of revision because the principal material or principal biomaterial suffer damage like wear, and exists another kind of cause of revision like acetyleucine. Acetyleucine is related to the wear of the polymer, and the number of procedures per year is increased. Well, the next is methods and techniques, and the experiments were carried out using a volume distribumeter. This is a volume distribumeter, the configuration of which is shown in this picture. The parameters that we programmed is in the equipment were temperature, entrainment speed, low, sliding to rolling ratio, and the research by Barcenas translate the arthrokinematics and loading condition established in this international standard to left total knee replacement on this standard to the volume distribumeters, because they evaluate the behavior of the friction coefficient. And next, they evaluate, they use two kind of different protein concentration. They use two kind of lubricants. They use bovine serum for 20 grams per liter and 36 grams per liter. As you can see, they fit a model. This model is related with the pressure and the slide to rolling ratio. The more important results of this research is that they found that the pressure and the sliding to rolling ratio and the lubricant are important on the behavior of the friction coefficient. And as you can see these results, the principal parameter or the principal effect on the coefficient of friction is the pressure, and the second effect is the sliding to rolling ratio. And the values are more close, as you can see, for this kind of concentration or this kind of concentration. In this research, as you can see in the graph on the left side, we can observe the behavior of the Newtonian flow. The Newtonian flow is the water. And the sliding to rolling ratio increase, the value of the coefficient of friction increase. And the same behavior occurs when the entrainment speed increase. As you can see, we put two kind of entrainment speeds. But, however, when the lubricant is above zero, the behavior of the coefficient of friction is opposite than the water. We observe that all the time for a sliding to rolling ratio is higher for above zero than for the water. And the other point here is the order of the parameters is different to the water. As you can see, the highest value of the friction coefficient, the coefficient of friction, is when we have an entrainment of speed of 20 millimeters per second. In order to know the effect of the lubricant and the parameters such as the load, the entrainment speed, and the sliding to rolling ratio on the coefficient of friction, we evaluate a quadratic model, WASFIT. This model tells us what is the effect of the parameters and the lubricant on the coefficient of friction. The model prediction on the result is quite good, as you can see. This is the results of the model. And the statistical analysis is to perform to isolate the protein contribution, shows good fit with a second order prediction model for the difference between of the corresponding coefficient of friction for both zero and water at the two levels of the entrainment speed, 20 and 80 millimeters per second. As you can see, this is the model WASFIT, and the result said that the effect of the protein is large at entrainment speed of 80 millimeters per second, have a highest value on the coefficient of friction. And the results shows that excess protein contribution to lubrication depends the entrainment speed and the sliding to rolling ratio. And this is the reference. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in this poster session. All posters are in Facebook of iCASAT 2021. And tomorrow we hope you enjoy with us the close ceremony at 7 o'clock. And tomorrow we are announce the winner of the poster. Thank you very much to everyone.